I applied for the visa, I got it, and then I got here to Ohio, right? And when I got to Ohio, he had wired only 1 semester worth of tuition, and which was
Stop looking, 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 stop. We're walking around looking like a dangerous. Walking around looking like we're dangerous.
So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for taking out the time to come to this interview.
Thank you.
You've been so busy. I just want to say thank you. Like, I really appreciate you. And
To do it.
okay, so give me a brief introduction of yourself.
Oh, sure. My name is Folake. I'm from Oyo State, Nigeria, although I grew up all my life in Lagos. And right now, I'm a data engineer at Spreetail, which is an e-commerce company here in Nebraska.
What did you want to be as a child, and what are you doing now?
I really liked teaching. Teaching looked very fun to me. And so I think even now, what I really want to push my career towards is some kind of educational role.
Nice. So do you think that you would go into teaching when you retire from being an engineer?
I don't even think I'm going to wait that long for when I retire. I think that at some point when I feel like my career is at a very good point, I think I'm going to make that transition, because then I could find a way to teach part-time, because
Okay, so my next question would be, what was life like when you were in engineering school as a female engineer? Like,
Oh,
that's a different level entirely. I think that it was very normal to be one of the few girls in class. I was lucky in that I started freshman year with like two or three girls, and then as we progressed through freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, we were the same 3 girls all through till graduation.
you're lucky.
Sometimes they would take classes from different maybe colleges or in different sessions, and at that point you wouldn't be in the same class with them. So sometimes you'd be the only girl in class with a bunch of like 20 or 15 guys, and that sometimes was a little intimidating for me. I think that when you feel like you're the other in a class a lot, it's kind of difficult sometimes to speak up, and sometimes to be comfortable enough to share your ideas or feel like your ideas are valid. So I think that that's something that I definitely struggled with. But other than that, I think computer engineering in general was challenging, especially when you had to learn all the software portion of it. The hardware portion was very experimental, so it was easy to kind of maneuver your way around it. But then the hardware portion was definitely more. The hardware portion was more enjoyable, but the software part was the one where you had to learn Java and C++, and sometimes if your program doesn't compile, you can't submit it. So you're just sitting there trying different things and Googling. Yes. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but sometimes you would say something as an idea or maybe a solution, and it would get swept under the carpet, and then somebody else that just happens to be a man will say the exact thing verbatim, and all of a sudden, oh, that's so novel. And I'm just like, I just said that. Are you smoking something? I just said that. Yes, I just said that. And that happened quite a few times, both in undergrad and in grad school. So I think it's a result of being the other. Sometimes you just have to fight your way through so that people can believe that you know what you're talking about.
True. So for undergrad, you studied computer engineering, and then for grad, what did you study?
In grad school, I studied MIS. I wanted something that would give me a well-rounded view. And like I mentioned, I didn't really love the programming portion, the software development portion of computer engineering. But with MIS, I was able to take that software part, that programming portion, but also take business classes as well. So they teach you a combination of how to build software and how to make software work from a business point of view.
What's MIS for people that don't know?
Management Information Systems. It's a fairly new field in comparison to something like computer engineering. So it's not as old. So not all schools offer it, but I think a lot of schools now do. And it's an interesting field, I would say, because you get to learn programming, you get to learn database development, you get to learn data analytics as well. So there are different concentrations under it, and I ended up choosing data management. So I focused heavily on database development, SQL, and database management and administration. Yeah.
So how did you get into school? Like, you from Nigeria, and like how did you get into like applying, like choosing schools, all those like cost, tuition, payments, like all those, because I know it's pretty expensive. Like when I see how much tuition international students paid compared to what I paid, it's usually like twice of what I'm paying as a, I guess, resident student. So how did you get into like choosing a school?
This is story time.
okay, where's my tea?
So I forgot to bring my own tea, but I guess you're the one getting the tea. So my parents had found this man called Edu World in Ikeja. So at that time, he was kind of the expert, quote unquote, about finding a school in a different country, applying to that school, what you need to do, TOEFL, SAT, all of that.
Yeah.
And so my parents had found him, and he mentioned this school called Wilberforce University, which is a HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio. And so he talked to my parents about it, he told me about it, and then he asked me what I wanted to study, and at that time it was computer engineering, right? So I told him, he said, Wilberforce University has this program. So I applied, I took TOEFL, and they said that my work was good enough to the point where I didn't need to take SAT, so that was one good thing. So I applied, got accepted, and then this man told us that we needed to pay for 2 semesters before you can go and apply for the visa. I applied for the visa, I got it, and then I got here to Ohio, right? And when I got to Ohio, he had wired only 1 semester worth of tuition.
How much was that like in dollars?
Time, that was, I think it was maybe 13,000. Yeah, I think so. And so I know at that time it was no big deal. I was like, okay, that's fine. You just send it. Maybe there's a restriction on how much you can wire at once. So I just went about,
YahooYahoo.
I went about assimilating and trying to understand this new world I've been dropped in. Should I back up a little bit before we move in?
Yes.
Okay. So I got the visa, applied, and you know how you go through that whole parental talk of remember the child of whom you are type of a thing, and you're just like, and I'm just like, hey, all right, that's fine, that's okay. So because I think for them, they're looking at it from the point of view of we're sending this 16-year-old to go and live in a whole different country, and that is just what's going on right now. So anyway, they gave me the whole talk. I did my braids. They picked all my edges. That kind of braids where you can't even your neck is just
like this.
Yes. And I got all my things ready. I packed, and then Ohio is very cold, so we had to go look for a jacket in Yaba. So we went to Yaba, and then there was nothing there. Then went to Saleko. Saleko was, hey, you've been to Saleko before, Lagos Island. Have you been? Okay. And that place, if you go, just know your whole day is gone. Just know you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you still not reach home before, after. So we went and looked, because we had to find suitcases as well, because how you want to take 2 suitcases, and because it was somewhere new, you pack clothes for a whole year, because I knew I wasn't going to go home again until the end of freshman year. So we packed suitcases. We bought suitcases from Saleko. Bought a boot, I think, because it was going to be winter, because I was going in the spring semester. So we bought a boot.
Dang.
Then we bought the jacket. Hey, you see how ugly this jacket was there? Let's just.
But you were like, back then, you didn't think it was ugly.
Back then I was just like, I guess this is the new normal.
Yeah.
I guess this is how my life is going to be going forward. But it was a fun, in hindsight, it was a funny experience because those were things we were buying, not understanding how I was going to even use them, right? Turned out Ohio was colder than those cold jackets. Those jackets were nothing. Nothing.
One, right?
Those jackets are the light jackets you wear in September when you're like, oh, light sweater.
Hey. Wow, so did he buy you like a heavy winter jacket?
No, we didn't buy that because when you have not experienced winter
Yes,
before, you underestimate it, right? When people tell you it's so cold in Ohio, you're like,
How cold can it get?
Is this our Lagos? Is it not this Lagos? Is this not this Lagos? Is it not Hamatan that comes and passes? So we got all the necessary things. Then we bought a ticket. We bought a round trip ticket, right? Because the goal was to be able to come back home after a year, freshman year. So then I got here. When I got to Ohio, it was February, so it was like 3 weeks into the semester already. So I had a lot to catch up on. But the good thing was that the first semester is mostly general classes, and then I had to test to get into the math classes, as you know, because so they have to know.
Did you have to test for the English? Oh, you did TOEFL, so you didn't have to test
I
for
didn't know. They just placed me in English Comprehension 1, like the basic one as a freshman that you have to take. But I had to test for math because they needed to know where to start me from. So I tested and they put me in college algebra, and so I started off. I didn't have to take all those algebra, arithmetic.
Whatever,
So I did that, and so that was my transition into being a first-time student here. I made sure I went all the way from Misaleko, so I can let you know the differences. But to round up the question about the EduWorld guy from Ikeja, second semester came and he stopped answering his phone calls. He stopped replying emails.
So he just chopped the money like that.
He just chopped it though. And the funny thing about life is that a few years later, I met somebody else. Well, not a few years later, maybe a year later, I met somebody else who was Nigerian, and in that school, that had their brother. Their brother went to Malaysia through that guy, and the guy did the same exact thing to his brother. So apparently, it's an MO for him. He tells you have to pay for maybe a year or 2 semesters, and then just goes.
Why?
So after that, did you get a job for paying your tuition, or did they continue paying your tuition for you?
They continued. So I think after my first year, I was able to get a year and a half at the school, I was able to get scholarship, a full scholarship to cover the rest of my year there and the rest of my time at the school. So my parents didn't have to pay tuition again after my first 3 semesters. And then I was able to get a job as one time as a tutor. So I was a tutor for about a year, and then I became a computer lab technician for the rest of my 2.5 years left at Wilberforce. Yeah. So
if you want to study here, you just try to get a scholarship. Is it easy, or how difficult?
I wouldn't say it's easy. I think that's a combination of making sure that your first year and a half you have a very good GPA, and then making sure that you are always applying, right? Don't say, oh, because I've not been in school for a year, just apply, because a lot of times they don't review your application until the following academic year when you would already have met the requirements. So I just kept applying and just waiting, and then I was able to get a full ride scholarship after a year and a half. So I would say keep applying and make sure you maintain a very good GPA.
That helps. Yeah. Okay, so advice for people who are trying to study abroad from Nigeria.
Advice. I think that I would say before you apply, make sure that you research the school and make sure that you research the state and the city where that school is. I think knowing what I know now, I'm very grateful that I went to Wilberforce, because Wilberforce is a HBC, which is a historical black college and university. So I think that being at Wilberforce really kind of helped me it shielded me a little bit from the racism that exists in Ohio. And I think that
Wow.
and I think that it's important to research, right? Because when you come to any country, and let me use the US since that's the only point of reference I have. When you come to this country, I think that in Nigeria, we're not taught about slavery or privilege or just the history of it all and what still exists, the residual effects of it now. So I think it's easy to come here and think you're all dandy, but then you have to learn about assimilation, and you have to learn about just the random, really terrible people you are going to meet that will treat you differently because of the color of your skin. And I don't think you can escape it in any part in America, but I think that there are different degrees to it, right? I think that some states are worse than others, and others are more diverse. So I think just right off the bat, look up and see how diverse that school is. And I'm not talking about diverse just, people of African descent. Look and see, like, can you find a good amount of people of African descent, a good amount of Indians, a good amount of Chinese people, a good amount of Caucasian people? Because you don't want to go to a school where you constantly feel like you're the other. Because if you're a girl and you're going into anything technical or engineering, right now you're still going to feel a little bit like the other because you might be one of the few, but you don't want to add race on top of that. So I think do a lot of research, because I think a lot of people get mentally drained from having to be the other all the time in terms of race, because that's even more draining. So I said do a lot of research, find out what the school is about, find out policies about the school. The good thing is somewhere like the US has so many schools, so you don't have to be hung up on just one school. If one school doesn't seem like it, just move on to another institution that has it. I think also look at scholarships that schools have. Try to find schools that offer scholarships to, even if it's not incoming freshmen, but at different levels, so that way you can know, all right, if I spend a year here, I can apply for scholarships. And I'm not saying that you will always get it. I'm not saying that you apply and just get it, because there's a lot of competition. There are tens of thousands of people just like you also applying. But I think that it's good to do that research beforehand. Some people are lucky, they get scholarships the very first semester they get into school, and that's based on, some people get very high scores on their SATs, and the SATs help them get those scholarships like the first semester. So I would say do a lot of research, spend some time looking up the school, looking up the state, looking up the city, looking up scholarships, and come here with an open mind. When you get here, don't just stick to your comfort zone, right? So for example, if you come to this country and you go to a school like maybe let me think of Chicago, right, where there are a lot of Nigerians. If you come here, and you find Nigerians, don't just stick to, I'm comfortable with Nigerians. Or if you're South African, don't just stick to, I'm comfortable with South Africans. Try to integrate yourself, right? Because the point of coming to a different country is so that you can learn something different from what you are used to. I am comfortable being Nigerian. I know what it feels like to be Nigerian, but if I get here, I don't want to just say I hang out only exclusively with Nigerians. I want to find different people that can teach me different things. I open my eyes up to other ideas and other ways of life and other ways of thinking, right? Because you don't want to limit yourself. So I would say open your mind up to different things when you get here, or any other country you go to. Find different people that can help shape you, and also try to find as many Africans as you can, because honestly, Africans are going to be your safe space. I think
that's true.